I'm at the STC Summit, and I'm talking with Whitney Quesenbery about her new book, Storytelling in User Experience Design, which she just published. So, Whitney, I wanted you to explain a little bit about the story that prompted the book. What is it that got you into writing it? Was there a problem you were trying to solve, or what was the issue that got you into it?
Well, what prompted me writing the book? Let's see. I'm sort of a real qualitative person, so I found that I was learning about people and the audience through stories. And so I would come in and I'd want to tell the story about what I'd heard and what someone had said. And they'd say, come on, I need the numbers. And so I started reading about it, and I discovered that, in fact, storytelling is a really good way to communicate information. And so that was the beginning of it. And things went on for a few years, and Rosenfeld Media asked me if I'd be interested in writing a book, and I said, nope, don't know nearly enough to write a book on this subject, and you should talk to Kevin Brooks. And they talked to Kevin Brooks, and he said, nope, don't know nearly enough on the subject, you should talk to Whitney Quesenbery. And the answer was sort of obvious, that we should take my user experience and usability experience and his performance storytelling experience and put them together.
So a lot of project managers who are gathering requirements tend to just want the facts or really stripped down information. Why does that? How is that a problem?
Well, it's not a problem if the information is really high quality and you've really gotten at the core of the information. But often I think what we get is sort of pure fact without any rationale, without any why, without an understanding of the people behind it. And the more we strip down to just the facts, ma'am, the closer we get to being just code. And there's no people left in the zeros and the ones. Right? So stories are a way to kind of bring some of that back in, or it's a way to make sure you've collected it and that you kind of understand it. So now you understand the human story behind the facts.
Yeah, actually, reading your book, this reminds me of a quote you put in the book from Ira Glass that says, he says, you don't understand anything unless you've understood the story around it, or something to that effect. Do you want to comment on that?
I think Ira Glass is one of the best storytellers we've got right now. I mean, he takes both little quirky stories and big news stories. The fact that he can do what happened in the financial meltdown and, these weird little stories he does on This American Life and turn them into something that's interesting. Because I think, look, we make things for a living. We make things that other people use, whether it's software or technology devices or whatever it is that we make. We make them for other people to use. If you don't understand those people and how they're going to use it, how can you possibly make something that they're going to like using?
So these stories add the context and the meaning behind the stripped down information so that people can build better products. So this seems very close to this whole idea of personas. How does storytelling differ from personas or build on it?
Oh, it builds on it. I mean, so a persona is something to hold data, right? Because personas are based on data, and the stories add the richness back in. So we might use demographic data or log analysis data or user interview data to decide on who the personas are going to be. But the stories that we've heard from those people build them back up into being real people. Otherwise, they're just a kind of stick figure. And you can use stories, you can use scenarios to sort of explore what that persona might do in a new situation. Oh, like encountering the new design that you're working on or a new innovation that you're working on.
So in agile processes, they have this term user stories to kind of describe things, and they're usually one-liners. How would like a user story in the agile sense differ from the storytelling that you're talking about?
Okay, so a user story in agile is like a requirement. And I must admit, I'm not really an agile person, but I'm actually very interested in this intersection of, I don't know what to call them, persona stories and user requirement stories or user stories. Maybe the persona stories are the elaboration of that requirement because the user story is a person, a type of person does a thing for a reason. But the story we're telling could actually fill out those details and help you understand context, help you understand rationale, help you understand motivation. Not just, why are they doing it? When are they doing it? Are they doing it often? Are they doing it because they have to? Are they doing it happily? Are they doing it with kids running around the living room?
So we've been talking about stories for a while without defining it. So what is a story?
Boy, I feel like it's like user experience. I've tried not to define it because whole wars could be fought over the definition of story, and is a story different than a scenario? And in a way, I mean, yeah, I could get involved in those arguments too, but I don't really care about those definitions. What I really care about is that somewhere during our work, we spend some time thinking about people. And then we spend some time thinking about how those people might tell their own story. And so I don't think we need to define it as a beginning, middle, and end, which is one of the definitions for a story, because you might just have a little fragment, a little sort of piece of something that's a little anecdote that helps you understand someone better. And I don't think we need to define it as a form. It doesn't have to have plot. It doesn't have to have structure. It could be just all imagery, right? Images of what it's like to do something. They say, one of the things anthropologists say is that a culture can be defined as people who share stories. So maybe they're the glue that kind of hooks us together. But I hate getting so like touchy-feely about them because it makes engineers crazy when you start talking like that. And really, I think they're a tool. They're a tool like any other tool. Like personas are a tool. They just have to be a very rich, useful tool.
So what you mentioned, it makes engineers crazy when you start getting touchy-feely or emotional or too many details. So what happens if you have like an elaborate story and you're telling it to engineers? Do they resist that? Is that your experience?
Well, I think you have to shape your story for your audience. Just like you're using stories to gather information about the audience for the product, how you tell your story might be different. So if let's say you have an innovation team and you're sitting there working through some problems, you might use a lot of rich detail to understand that, but then you might strip that story down to something a little more spare to tell it to your management or your engineers. So you're different levels of detail for different people.
I actually remember a story I was telling to a group of developers that did catch their attention about a user who had this crazy request, and it was they were listening and they wanted me to retell it later. How do you go about collecting these stories? Because it seems like you really have to be embedded in their context. You have to gain their trust. People aren't just going to naturally kind of open up. They may just tell you very specific tasks. I want to do this. How do you open them up?
So stories start with listening, which sounds completely backwards, right? We think about storytelling, but really, as user researchers, we're story listeners. So part of how you get someone to tell you stories is by giving them time, by giving them the space to do it. So you might start with the specific technical information you need, and then give them a chance to tell you some more things. Listen to them. Maybe they don't tell you a lot on the first go, but the more you're willing to listen, to give them your attention, we call it really listening, the more they will trust that you're actually paying attention to them. And often, I think when we're talking to users, we're talking to people who may not be listened to, at least around the topic of, say, the software we're building. So the gift of someone coming to them and saying, yeah, I want to know what your work life is like. I want to know what your life is like. And I actually really want to know, and I'm willing to be patient and take the time while you think it through and tell me. And I'm not just here with a 10-question checklist and I'm going to rush you through it.
So do you go out and kind of immerse yourself among users in an ethnographic sort of way, or do you do usability and gather stories there, or by phone? I mean, a lot of times technical writers we're separated from users. It's a bridge we have to cross, and it's hard to do.
I think the answer is yes, all of the above. I mean, when you have the time in a project to go out and immerse yourself, isn't that wonderful? But if you don't, you use whatever you have. I mean, I work a lot with oncologists. I don't get to immerse myself in their world, and I don't get very much of their time. So maybe I talk to a few more of them, but I do a lot of work by phone. I do a lot of story gathering during usability testing. I'll start with an open-ended interview, use that interview to kind of understand what their relationship to the thing we're testing is, and use that to generate a task for them. So the first thing I ask people to do is something like, well, what would you like to do here? Before I start telling them what to do and giving them instructions, give them some time to do what they want to do. Or maybe I'll ask them what their 3 questions about the thing I'm testing is, and if one of those happens to be what I want to test, then we can start with what they want to do instead of what I want them to do.
Well, thanks for talking to me today, Whitney. If you want to find her book, Storytelling and User Experience Design, where can they find it?
Rosenfeld Media. It's www.rosenfeldmedia.com. You can follow the links from there. It's Great website. We also have a blog there, so we're continuing to write the book.
All right, thanks for talking to me today.
Thanks.